One of the first principles we need to understand before we go off-road is the effect of tyre pressures on the terrain over which we drive and the vehicle's performance. Firstly, a tyre that is very, very hard will tend to penetrate through. A tyre that is soft will tend to float. Now, for sand driving, such as this morning, the sand is actually quite wet, so it's got a lot of buoyancy. The vehicle, even with fairly hard tyres, does not sink in. But the moment the sand gets soft, a hard tyre will penetrate through, making driving difficult. So the first question is, what surface are we driving over? And how will our tyres penetrate? If they're going to penetrate a lot and reduce the power pull, absorb the power from the vehicle, then we're going to need to lower our tyre pressures. Now we're going to go sand driving today. And the first thing we're going to do is look at the condition of the sand, and here the sand in some places is quite compact, but where it's soft we're going to battle. So we're going to drop the tyre pressures. Our first port of call is 1 bar. We can go lower or we could go higher, but it's a good starting point. So I suggest that 1 bar is where we are going to start today. So to do that we need a tyre pressure gauge. Okay, it's the first thing you're going to buy at any off-road 4x4 shop. You're going to buy a tyre pressure gauge. It's the first thing you're going to need. Okay, 1 bar, good starting point. What actually happens when you let down a tyre? Imagine this. This is a tyre, it's kind of roundish, driving along the road. And there's the road surface. That's the layer on the road. Let down the tyre and it softens. Actually, there becomes the new road surface there. That's the new footprint, much longer. Many people assume it's the fact that the tyre gets wider and that is what helps with flotation. Not really, because a radial tyre actually bends in at the bottom. So yes, it gets a bit wider, but a wide tyre has a higher rolling resistance, and that's not where the advantage is. The advantage is here. A long footprint. But there's more to it than that. I want to talk now about tyre pressures on hard ground. Hard stony ground where the rocks and stones threaten the tyre sidewalls. I'm going to demonstrate something quite interesting to you now. The idea here is that if you lower your tyre pressures down to a point where you're not making them so soft so they're vulnerable to damage, but soft enough so that they curve over the obstacle. You might have a rock like this, and it curves, you have more traction, you have more surface area of the tyre on the obstacle, giving you better traction. More tyre footprint means better traction, but it also means that the bulging sidewall is vulnerable to damage. In this case, pressures have been dropped about 50% from normal. There you go. 1.7 bar. Now let's see the difference. Now let's try something with our Range Rover. This time, rubber tyres are going to try and grip on wood. Well, that's off-roading for you. This is the exception that proves the rule. Extraordinary thing, it seemed to make things worse, but the principle remains. Lower tyre pressures give more grip and soften the ride on rough and undulating terrain. On sand, low pressures are essential to prevent the tyres sinking down. Rough tracks that traverse the 4xOverland in northern Namibia, the corrugations are particularly bad. Reducing tyre pressures can help here too. Corrugations. One of the things you've got to put up with on trails. I hate corrugations. I hate corrugations. There are miles of them. They'll never end. And it's getting really bad, so It's a little trick that just eases the pain just a little bit. Let the tyre pressures down a bit. One of the things about corrugations is tyre pressures. If the tyres are too hard, shakes the vehicle around like crazy. Let them down about 10 to 15% of normal pressures. These are at 2.8. Take them down to about 2.2. Okay, 2.3. It'll just soften the ride and the vehicle won't dance around quite as much as it was doing before. Corrugations, terrible. Turn off the camera, I've got to replace my teeth. It's actually made a difference, you know. It's actually made quite a big difference. It's made a huge difference. I think I'll have a think.